Hello everyone, I'm Professor Aside Bottom. In this video, we will talk about Spanish familiar commands. Let's start by talking about the affirmative commands for people you address with the pronoun tú. In order to create an affirmative familiar command in Spanish, we use the third person singular of the indicative present. And as you can see, I chose here three verbs, very common verbs, hablar, comer, and abrir, and I conjugated them in indicative present just as a reminder of the conjugation in the present tense indicative. However, for this lesson, we only need the third person singular of the verb, the usted, él, ella form. So for hablar, habla. For comer, come. For abrir, abre. There are 8 verbs that are irregular in the affirmative familiar commands, which means they do not follow the rules that we just talked about. Decir, di. Hacer, haz. Ir, ve. Poner, pon. Salir, sal. Ser, sé. Tener, ten. Venir, ven. Here are some examples of some simple affirmative familiar commands. Pablo, abre la ventana, por favor. Pablo, open the window, please. Ana, habla más despacio. Ana, speak slower. Niño, come tus verduras. Child, eat your vegetables. Mamá, cierra la ventana. Mom, close the window. Juan, di la verdad. Juan, say the truth. Eva, pon la mesa. Eva, set the table. Martín, haz tu tarea. Martín, do your homework. Marta, ten cuidado. Marta, be careful. Indirect and direct object pronouns are attached to the ending of the affirmative commands, like in the following examples. Dime la verdad. Dímela. Tell me the truth. Tell it to me. Abre la ventana. Ábrela. Open the window. Open it. Háblale a Eduardo. Talk with Eduardo. Haz la tarea ahora. Hazla ahora. Do the homework now. Do it now. Ponte los guantes. Póntelos. Put the gloves on. Put them on. Sé amable con ella. Be nice to her. We have to add a tilde or written accent when it is necessary to maintain the same stress on the same syllable. Also, if the command requires both an indirect object pronoun and a direct object pronoun, the indirect comes first and then the direct. Negative commands are formed with the second person singular of the present subjunctive, which is tú. But how do we form the subjunctive? Step 1, we take the yo form of indicative present, like yo hablo, yo corro, yo salgo. Step 2, we remove the o from the hablo, corro, salgo. And then we are left with the stem, hable, corre, salga. Step 3, we add the opposite ending to the stem of the verb, and the final form is the subjunctive present. Yo hable, yo corra, yo salga. So if it's an AR verb, we add the ER, IR endings, and if it's an ER or IR verb, we add the AR endings. Here are some important notes on the negative familiar commands. If the verb is irregular in the indicative present in the yo form, it will have the same irregularity in the subjunctive and in the commands. Here are some examples. The verb escoger, the subjunctive tú escojas, the G goes to J, the same J from the yo indicative present. The verb dirigir, tú dirijas in subjunctive the same way G goes to J. Distinguir, distingas in the subjunctive. And then we have the verbs that end in car, gar, zar, where car goes to que, gar goes to ge, and zar goes to se. For example, buscar, tu busques, llegar, tu llegues, empezar, tu empieces. Verbs that are stem changing in the indicative present will have the same stem changes in the subjunctive present. The same 5 verbs that are irregular in the subjunctive are irregular as commands also. Dar, no des. Estar, no estés. Ir, no vayas. Saber, no sepas. Ser, no seas. Indirect and direct object pronouns are placed in front of the verb in the negative commands. No cierres la ventana. No la cierres. Do not close the door. Do not close it. No te vayas. Do not go away. No te pongas ese vestido. No te lo pongas. Do not put on that dress or do not put it on. No les escribas una carta. No se la escribas. Do not write them a letter or don't write it to them. If the command requires both an indirect object pronoun and a direct object pronoun, the indirect object comes first and then the direct object. Now let's do a short review. In order to create an affirmative familiar command in Spanish, we use the third person singular of the indicative present. There are 8 verbs that are irregular in the affirmative familiar commands: decir, hacer, ir, poner, salir, ser, tener, venir. Indirect and direct object pronouns are attached to the ending of the affirmative command. Now, negative commands are formed with the second person singular of the present subjunctive, tú. There are 5 verbs that are irregular in the negative familiar commands: dar, estar, ir, saber, and ser. Indirect and direct object pronouns are placed in front of the verb in the negative commands. I hope this video helped you understand better the familiar commands in Spanish, how to form them and how to use them. Thank you for your attention. Hasta la próxima.